Welcome to Make It Plain from Make Plain Jesus Ministries, featuring Pastor James Bryan, where we take biblical truths in everyday situations and break them down to be as plain as possible. So, stay tuned and enjoy the broadcast.
Welcome to Make It Plain. We're glad once again to spend some time with you and to be able to talk about godly principles and things, but make it plain and practical for your everyday life. Once again, for one more occasion, we brought back this gentleman that many of you have heard, and his name is Daryus.
What's up, y'all? I'm back.
Oh, my goodness. See what happens? You give someone a mic, and then they just go for it.
And pizza. You gave me pizza.
I gave you pizza, too. That's right. So on this particular podcast, we want to continue on our topic about the challenges of being a Christian in today's world. And so we talked about a number of topics in part one and part two. And if you haven't listened to those, I would urge you to go back to those and listen to part one and part two. And in this third part, as we begin to wrap up this topic, at least for this iteration anyway, we want to be able to talk more about just the challenges of being a Christian in today's world. But we're going to go and step over the line a bit and talk from a standpoint of what are the challenges of being a Christian in today's church, right? And so what are some of the challenges that those who are trying to really follow what they're hearing, what are they running into in some of the churches, and how do you deal with that? Because these are your brothers and sisters if you're a Christian, but how do you get over those challenges and what do you do there? So I'm going to start putting some of those questions to Daryus, and I'm also going to, put in front of him, too, as I'm telling him, I'm giving him a moment to prepare is what I'm really doing. He's like, yes, thank you. I also want to put before him, these challenges that we're going to identify. How is that different than about 2 decades ago, maybe the prior generation, and how they dealt with it versus how we're dealing with it and those types of things. So that's where we're going to spend some time today. So, Daryus, I'm assuming already that you do go to some church from time to time, yes?
Yes.
Cool. And so this is not a indictment or a focus on your particular individual church, but I'm talking about churches you've been to and around, what you've heard others say. So for those that go to Daryus' church, I want to make sure you don't get on him for anything he says. He's not talking about you. He's just talking about the church at large. And so I want to make sure I got you out of trouble.
AKA all the haters. I'm just playing. I'm playing with you. Thank you. That was good.
Yeah, so, see, I'm looking out for you. So with all that being said, so tell me, what are some of the challenges that the folks that you may hang around with, have conversation with, that are having problems with in the church itself, because they're trying to live a Christian life as they see it now in this world, but yet maybe whether it's traditions, whether it is just different rules that someone just put down, whether it is just that your interpretations there. What are some of the challenges that you're hearing and seeing?
One of the big things that I've noticed and I've seen, and I think that this is such a horrible thing within our church, and it's leading to a lot of people. It's horrible for our community. Okay. It's something that I think has pushed back a lot of people from the church. And that is when people go into the church, it seems like there's this idea of what it looks like to be a Christian.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And again, of course, in the Bible, it talks about bearing fruit.
Right.
Like, we know what the marks of a Christian are, or at least hopefully, we do. Right. And we could talk about that another time. Right. So you bear fruit, of course, like that's something you can see. But I'm not talking about that, right? That's good stuff. I'm talking about people having a perception of what Christian is, like making it a specific thing. That it's not. And so what I mean by that is, for example, Christian in America is evangelical. Like that's the perfect ideal of what a Christian looks like. It's an evangelical, or a Christian is someone that wears a suit and tie when they come to church, right? Or a Christian is someone that doesn't drink, like different things like that. And so people come into the church, and instead of the church being a place where people, right? Remember, you said this, perfectly in the earlier podcast episode, but that Jesus didn't come to just save Christians.
Yeah.
He didn't come to just save rats, or deer, or crickets, or I don't know what other animal goes.
Yeah, you stop right there.
But he came to save the whole world, right? So that's number one. He came to save the whole world, which means the church is not just for Christians. Actually, the church is for the world. Okay, right? That means the church is here for people. Now I can hear people saying, "What's he talking about?" Exactly. So go ahead, keep going. And I'm going to keep talking about it, right? And I love this. I love this too. Their ears are perked, right? Yep. But the church is for people who aren't Christians or who aren't this or whatever to come to, right? Mm-hmm. To learn about God, to experience God, to have a place of comfort, right? Like the church should be the center of, which is I think even again in the midst of a time where social justice is so much attention on it again, and we mentioned that earlier, right? The church should be the forefront of justice or addressing issues or leading in whatever front for any type of injustice that's going on ever, right? The church should be the center of that, and that is the gospel, and Jesus has shown that. And so people come into the church, and I've seen this, and it's sad, and people talk about it, right? And again, I understand this, right? You in life still, you shouldn't allow. You should. I was gonna say allow for other things or people to keep you from doing what you want to or believe, of course. But still, it is the church's fault, and it's sad that we have done this, right? And I can be very, very direct with this because I am a believer in the church. We do have an issue, but that is of if someone comes into your church looking like something that you're not used to, and you're like, you have to change for that. Are you kidding me? Like that, it's crazy, and I'm so passionate about it because it's literally it's destroying our witness to people. Right. Not only that, nothing in the Bible talks about a Christian being someone that looks this way, this whatever. Actually, to the contrary, the Christianity is so different than other religions, and it's awesome because what is it? It's inclusive of all people. Yeah, yeah. Now let me give you an example. You brought up a memory. About making sure that you're not just stereotyping a person that's supposed to be Christian. I remember several years ago, we were in a different location in our church, and we had the flags up like everybody does. This is how you get in. And at that time, we had a great facility, but man, you needed a map to get to it because the way the area was. And there was this gentleman who was a traveling businessman, and he was from, I can't remember where in Georgia, not like Atlanta or anything, but some other smaller area. And he came in, and so on that particular Sunday, and it's just how that happened, most of the people that were at the church on that Sunday were of color, meaning they were African-American for the most part at that time. Everybody else, for whatever reason, wasn't there on that Sunday. And so he comes in the door, and he is a white American from that perspective, and real nice guy. But the first thing he said was, "Am I allowed in here?" Wow. And it broke my heart because I'm thinking, why wouldn't you? Because in my mind, everybody's allowed in. But then I said, okay, the perception, I looked and said, wow, on this particular Sunday, there wasn't a mixture of folks. And again, I don't know why. And so that began me thinking about, well, what does a person think a Christian needs to look like or a church needs to look like in order to feel welcome? Yeah. And this society has gotten to the point that you're right, that we're saying it has to be this or that, or if you go into this particular church or building, then it has all these types of people versus the other. And that always bothers me in general. But the way the church itself, like you're saying, is stereotyping and saying, well, you don't fit the part, so you must not belong here, or you need to change to fit it, is heartbreaking. So literally, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. And so from the standpoint of thinking about the challenges within churches, so, when you begin to, most of your family sounds like went to church, right? Yeah. Particularly my mother's side of the family, we all go to the same church. And so you're the same church. Cool. Yeah. I remember we were, and my kids were young at the time, but we were living in, I think it was Germantown, Maryland, for those who know where that is. And so we're going to a church, but the challenge was there were folks that knew us. There was a certain denomination at the time, but this one lady, one of the prominent ladies on the choir, and they were a great choir. They didn't need music. In fact, most of the music
most times they sang, they didn't use instruments because they didn't have anybody, so they learned to be really good from an a cappella standpoint.
That's amazing.
And they were blending voices left and right. You're like, where did that all come from? But anyway, her husband started going to a different type of church. It was non-denominational. And all the conversations that went on about him, because he didn't fit the image of what they figure the Christian should be, because he decided to do something different.
Wow.
We always have to watch.
Isn't that something?
It is. It is.
Wow.
And so after a while, he stopped coming, and then we never saw him again after that.
Dang.
So that's the challenge that we face.
Yeah.
But I'm saying right now, and I'm going to give you one more story, then I'm going to get it back to you, because you're my guest. I want to make sure that I'm talking with you.
Hey, you got wisdom. Please, I'm here to get it.
There was, I was here at the church one day, and I don't remember what I was doing, something around here, and the phone rang. And so I went and picked it up, and there was this lady. I found out, I think she was from Ohio. She was about 22, 21, something like that, maybe 20. And she began to say, hey, I want to know about your church. I want to know what you believe in. What do you think about this topic? I want to know all this stuff. I'm thinking, who is this person? What it is that she belonged to, well, she is a Christian and, Jesus following type person, but she likes to dress kind of in a goth type dress. Okay. But she said, no, that's how it is. But everybody shuns me because that's the type of style I like to wear. Yeah. But if you listen to her talk, you could hear the passion for the Lord and everything else in there. Yeah. But it was, again, one of those things. She says, they say that I don't fit the image of what I should look like.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
You know what I'm saying? And so she was struggling with herself and her faith and who she was because of that.
Oh, my goodness.
And there's other stories there. And so I agree with you that we as Christians have to get to the point of understanding that we're not all going to look alike. We don't dress alike. But we should have the same spirit, right? And the one that we follow from that perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the quote-unquote image or the thing that we see that's observable.
Right.
That's the thing that's observable that we should be paying attention to. And that is, again, the marks of a true Christian.
Right.
As Paul talks about in his letters, right, is the fruit that a person bears.
Right.
And it's crazy because I was just watching a sermon. I was just telling you this, how crazy all the topics we're talking about,
right,
and the things that I've been listening to in the past couple of days. But I was watching a sermon, and the pastor Tim Rogers, and he basically just talked about one of the last point of his message, which was don't take a title over results, something like that, and I loved it because the emphasis was on, right, like we talked about the fruit that you're bearing, results of things of that nature. And it's crazy because how we've come to focus so much on people's image or things like that, or whatever, for a Christian, instead of looking at the true marks of a Christian. And people did it to Jesus too back in the day. Yeah. Like, when I brought up John the Baptist and Jesus, he talked about this, and it was funny the way he said it, but it was real, whereas people were saying bad things about John the Baptist, right? And the funny thing is that John the Baptist, out of all people, how can you say something bad about him? He literally was doing every guru thing, like, in the wilderness, all these things or whatever. And of course, he's different than all the other prophets because he's the one who said, instead of saying, Jesus is coming, oh, he's right there, right? Yeah. But people said bad things about him. Right. Okay, and he was so spiritual or whatever, right? Wow, okay. Then you come Jesus, the Son of Man, the Son of God, God himself, in flesh. And people talking crap about him. And but Jesus is very different, right? Yeah. He's not, of course, he's the most spiritual, but in terms of our perception or image of what we think is spiritual. Right. Jesus doesn't look like that. Right. He's having dinner with tax collectors. Yeah. And he's hanging out with prostitutes. Right. And he's drinking wine and eating all
dinner. Oh, no, somebody's preaching now. Here we go. I see it coming.
He's not fasting and all this as the other, Jews and the Pharisees looking at him. The whole point is, right, what Jesus was doing, we know he was communing with people, he's ministering, all this. But the crazy thing is people were talking about him like, oh, we're doing the same thing to people. It's crazy. Jesus, oh, you don't look like a Jew. You don't look like a this or that or whatever. And what does the word says? It says that, right, that who you are, right, in God's will and all that, like that's going to be shown and proven. Your actions, all that, or who you are is going to be shown and proven. And again, I'm paraphrasing. Yeah. Don't come at me. They'll be like, what translation is this? I'm looking at my ESV. But that's going to be proven based on your fruit that you bear.
Right.
And that is crazy to me how we as the church have, a number of us are looking at people and looking at stereotypical or looking at superficial things to see if a person's a Christian when we're supposed to be looking at the most foundational things, which is the fruit you're bearing, not what you're wearing, not what race you are, not what socioeconomic background you have or haircut. We're supposed to be looking at the fruit you're bearing. That is supposed to be the only thing that should give evidence to if a person is with God or not, walking with God or not.
Exactly.
Period, point blank.
Good. You know? Now, I'm put you on the spot, sort of. Not like I haven't done that already.
Let's go.
All right,
let's go.
So you said let's go. In it, and don't give me the specifics, but you feel like you have a call in your life, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now, so with all that being said, how do you now, based on everything that we talked about in part 1, part 2, and what we said thus far, and knowing that you have a call, how do you deal with that in this world, which is different from maybe someone else who may have had a similar call generation before or 20 years ago? What's different on how you perceive, do you think, than someone a generation or 20 years ago with the same call? So you don't have to tell me what the call is, but you know, it's similar to something someone else did, just different time, different place, and everything else.
I think this is very relevant and straight to the point. I think the biggest difference is that in past generations, and I think this is consistent, you know, throughout history and time, you always have a way that something's been done religiously or, you know, whatever, consistently. But, you know, big thing, and especially now, because we're in a time, social media, internet, technology, like this is, history always progresses and things get different and new, but this is as big of a difference in newness ever, right? Ever. And so I think the big difference between me or someone who has a call in their life, has a conviction like that, and someone in the past, and by past, I'm sure you're probably even just referring to even 20 years ago, whatever, as small as that, is that I feel as if people who felt like they had a call on their life or felt called, in actually just any capacity, not just clergy or being a minister or speaker, but that could be worship leader or music industry, doctor, whatever that is, politics, whatever that is, that God's calling you to, but had to do it a certain way, and had to go through specific customs, and be approved by people to get there. And now let me preface this before saying it. Of course, in life, because you know I recently talked about this somewhere, but like 1 Timothy, let me not butcher the word, 4:12, right? I think it's 1 Timothy 4:12, where Paul saying to Timothy, don't allow people to despise you for your youth, but be an example, for all in all areas of life and all this, right? Amazing. That, of course, there's context of things, that there's a certain level of maturity and preparation and all these things for you to do things in your life that God's even calling you to. So let me preface that, because Timothy, he was super young and going to be a pastor, and people were like, whoa, but the difference between him and just any other young person at that time was he had a upbringing and spiritual development that was quote unquote beyond, what could have been. So now with that said, let me say the controversial, I'm just playing. But that is that I think it's dope because I feel like there's more freedom than ever. Which doesn't mean that it's not easy, but more freedom than ever to be unorthodox. And again, unorthodox or different, it depends on like what is your norm, wherever you are in whatever church. But I have more freedom than ever to take a route that is different than what everybody else is taking. Okay. And so by that I mean is like, for example, my home church is a Baptist church. Okay. Right. And oh man, I hope I'm saying too controversial now. Everybody might get back to church like, what are you saying there? No, but for example, even within Baptist churches or different denominations, there are different things you need to do, certain steps you need to take. For example, if you want to be a minister, or different steps you want to take if you want to go into church administration, whatever that is, and I've had a very awesome and different experience throughout my past couple years with like whether that's learning, being exposed to all different types of theology, being able to speak at different places, whatever, right? But there's certain things that you have to do, based on your denomination and their church leadership, right, to get there. And that's not bad. That's not what I'm saying. But right, whether you're in the Methodist church or whatever, how they all do different things, right? Because of, again, the internet and social media and all that, and now we're able to reach people, you can really, really take a route that is different than what you've been around or whatever.
Right.
To get there, and you're not you're not inhibited. Is that the right word? Or is it
Keep going. Let me hear what you're going to say. You're prohibited from what?
Yeah, prohibited. That was the right word, right?
Yes.
You're not prohibited from. I know I overthought that one. But from being able to make progress or whatever, like you have to take that certain route to try to.
So you have more freedom to. So let me help you in this one area. But you are saying like your message and everything, the foundation's the same, but you have the freedom to go in different areas. Because one of the interesting things that I see, you're welcome. Now let's let you.
Thank you.
Because one of the things that I see nowadays is, and this is very true. A lot of people are saying, but you can still be a minister, even if you're not ministering from the pulpit. But you may have a way that you're reaching people based on your business or based on your whatever area you're working in, and still be able to bring souls to Christ and help them in that particular area. So, and I see a lot of people talking about, and it's true, that, they're looking at being outside the four walls of the church, but still ministering in a way.
Yeah.
And so their title may not be the pastor of such and such street, Baptist, Methodist, whatever, a church. But yet, through everything they're getting from church, they're pouring it out there, and they're still ministering and shepherding in those areas. Right. And so those are some of the abilities and expansions that are easier to do than it was before, based on all the things you said, social media and everything, right? And all those other things. Right, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we've got like 3 more minutes, and then we're almost done all of this too.
Part 4?
This is we'll see where we go beyond that.
That's a yes, ladies and gentlemen. Part 4 is coming.
Look, he's already saying, give me another part.
Man. Yeah. It's about God. It's not me. It's not
there
me.
You go. So out of all the things we talked about, and if you could have a platform for 3 minutes just to remind or encourage everybody about something that we've spoken about in all 3 parts here, what would it be? What would you want to say?
Wow. Yeah. This is.
Now I'm going to have to help you there, right?
This is on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say during this time of social unrest, I know everybody can see it on the news and everything like that. With the pandemic, of course, but again, on top of the pandemic, now with everything politically going on, with the race for the president, the presidential race, and as well as with all the attention on racial tension within the country, policing, and all these different things,
and world issues,
and everything. But especially within this time where you see so much tension and constant things going on, every time you pick up your phone and everything. It's important, I believe, for us to know that as believers, that we are we're the first responders to injustice. We're first responders to all the issues going on, and that this is not about what political affiliation you have or what other thing outside of the fact that you're a believer of your identity. You're a believer in Christ, and as a child of Him is your first identity. And what that means is that we're called to be advocates for reconciliation, justice, love, and peace in every aspect and everywhere we go, period, point blank, regardless of who the people on the opposing side are. And that is what we are called to do and ought to do.
Right. Very well said. And so, I have to ask the sound engineer, should I invite him back another time? It's like, one says yes, I don't know, maybe. No,
he's biased. Oh, man.
So with all that said, look, we want to just say to everybody, we hope that this has been helpful to you. We want to make sure you think about everything that we've discussed and go back to the other parts again and listen to what we covered and give us some feedback and let us know what you think about this. And so, as always, we're here for you. You can go to our website at makeplainjesus.org. If you have prayer requests, you can send those in also. But we want you to think about all the topics we brought up and just letting you know that the Lord really does love you. And no matter what you've done yesterday, today, or even might do tomorrow, just know that he's there for you. You're never alone. Amen. And so with that being said, we hope that you've absorbed it all. God bless you. And we hope to see you again next week.